Thank you, Jennifer. And yes, it's 10 years at Ingram this month, actually. So it's been a decade for sure. Um, yeah, as Jennifer mentioned, I'm going to cover quite a bit. It's going to be an overview of Ingram Book Company itself for a little bit, and then I'm actually going to go into the IngramSpark service and give a pretty good overview of how the service works, how it works for you, and then I'm also at the end going to give some retail insights to best practices in getting your book into the retail market. If you would, as Jennifer mentioned, just throw your questions in the chat. And at the end, I'll go through and answer as many that weren't answered. A lot of times you'll ask a question that I'm about to answer in a couple slides. So I'll definitely try to address every question that comes up. Jennifer, am I able to just take the screen share? Yeah.
Yeah, you should be able to.
All right. So what we're going to do here is I'm actually going to go through a PowerPoint. It's about 30 slides, but it'll go fairly quick. I try to talk fast. So for those of you who are not familiar, IngramSpark is a department division of Ingram Book Company. And so for those of you who are not quite familiar with Ingram, or may have not heard of Ingram, that's quite all right. Ingram is a family-owned business located here in Nashville, Tennessee, where I'm located. We're actually in Laverne is our headquarters, just 15 minutes outside of the city. And we've been around for over 60 plus years. Martha Ingram is still our matriarch. It's a family-owned company. And John Ingram is the son of Martha, who runs Ingram Book Company. So my name is Josh Floyd. I am, as Jennifer mentioned, the business manager of business development and sales for IngramSpark. I've been with Ingram for right at 10 years, as we said. I've worked across many different divisions with Ingram, first starting as a Lightning Source publisher representative, then moving to the field sales team for independent bookstores across the country, and then back to IngramSpark about 5 or 6 years ago once it started expanding to what it is now. So let's talk about what is Ingram and what is a wholesale model. Ingram is one of the world's largest and most trusted global wholesaler and distributor of books, both digital, print, and ebooks. As you see here in this model, the way it works is Ingram is the wholesale company in the middle with all the publishers that you see on the left-hand side. We have roughly, this slide's a little dated, we probably have roughly 40,000 traditional publishers and well over 100,000 indie authors and publishers who are uploading their content and getting their books available in the Ingram catalog. Currently, the Ingram catalog carries over 16 million titles that are available from all those publishers and authors. And Ingram's customer base is the retailers and libraries. And I'll show you on the next slide here who that covers. So Ingram's customers are going to be your global and regional chain bookstores, your Books A Million, your Barnes and Nobles, your independent retailers, that's your independent bookstores across the US and across the world, university bookshops, internet retailers. When you list your book with IngramSpark, as you'll see, it'll automatically appear at Amazon and barnesandnoble.com as well, plus a slew of other retailers like bookshop.org, Indie Commerce, all the different outlets that you see of books being sold. Gift retailers, museum gift shops, public and school libraries. We also supply all the US libraries who work with Ingram in the US as well. Not necessarily libraries across the world, but definitely the US for sure. And so what that means to you all, well, before we get to the next part, so let's talk about ebook distribution as well. As you'll see on the next slide, IngramSpark is a one-stop shop for both your print book and ebook distribution. So you can go into your IngramSpark account, upload your EPUB files, or upload your print PDF files and have those books distributed to all of Ingram's partners across the world. And this slide is a little outdated, as some of you who are IngramSpark customers may have seen. We updated our agreements within the past year, and we've expanded our ebook distribution channels into outlets like Hoopla, Overdrive, the library market, the pay-per-click, and subscription outlets as well. So there's a whole host of avenues that your ebooks can get to, even beyond the Amazon, Apple, and Kobo and major players. There's plenty of other retail outlets out there for your ebooks. So let's talk a little bit about IngramSpark. So Ingram is our wholesale company that is distributing the books all around the world and getting them where they need to go, whether that be a retailer or through an online transaction. IngramSpark, we have the mission of empowering publishing success by connecting content creators with a global audience. So our goal is to be a tool within your publishing belt where you can go upload your content and make it available anywhere in the world that you can reach your readers. So a little bit more about IngramSpark. As I mentioned, it's a one-stop platform for both print and ebook distribution. It's free to open an account at IngramSpark. It's non-exclusive when you work with IngramSpark. We are meant to be just another tool in your publishing belt. So you can work with us and any other service providers that are out there for you to access. We're just another outlet with the widest distribution reach across all of the industry. So when you're working with IngramSpark, you are the publisher. The best way to think about our services at IngramSpark is we are the guys and gals running around in the warehouse, printing, picking, packing, and shipping the books and getting them where they need to go, freeing you up to do the front of house work of creating the books, marketing the books, and selling the books. So when you're working with IngramSpark, even though if you're just an indie author working on your titles, or you're a small press who's representing other authors, you are the publisher when you open an account with IngramSpark in our eyes. So you are in complete control of your content. You'll set the retail price on the book. You'll set the market discount on the book, which we'll go into a little further detail on in a few slides. And you set the returnable option. So with IngramSpark, you can set the book as returnable or non-returnable. And again, we'll talk about that later and what that means to the retail outlet when you set that book returnable versus non-returnable. So we use print on demand. So Lightning Source is the print on demand division of Ingram. And that is the service that we use to get your books out into the world. So IngramSpark is a division of Lightning Source that is catering to the independent authors and publishers, where Lightning Source traditionally has always worked with the bigger houses, your big traditional houses that are keeping their backlist titles alive and have actually moved over to moving a lot of their front list stuff to print on demand as well. So some of the beauties of print on demand we'll talk about here in a minute, but the one main thing is that your book is always available and your most current edition is always available. And we'll get into that on the next slide. So as I mentioned, we have the widest global reach through our channel partners. They're again going through Ingram's outlets. We have over 40,000 retailers and libraries across the world who order from Ingram on any given day. We also have the largest network of ebook and online retailers for your ebook distribution services. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. So let's talk about print on demand and distribution. So how it works. First, you go in and open your IngramSpark account. To open an IngramSpark account, you'll need a credit card because all the transactions that you have in your IngramSpark account are credit card based. So if you're ordering books for yourself, or you're uploading a title or doing a revision, any type of action you take within your account is charged to your credit card. The other thing that you'll need is a checking account. And the reason we need the checking account is for when your books sell through Ingram. So if I'm a reader who goes to barnesandnoble.com or goes to my local independent bookstore and orders your title, what happens is that retailer is going to take the order, send it to Ingram. Ingram's going to fulfill the order for that retailer, getting your book where it needs to go. And the only thing that you need to worry about is the publisher compensation that you receive on the back end through your IngramSpark account, which will directly deposit into your checking account that you have set up on your account. So with IngramSpark, you can do pre-order campaigns as well. Currently, you're not able to do that through KDP. So if you go to KDP, they're going to tell you if you want to do pre-orders, you need to go to IngramSpark. So you are able to go ahead and put your book up, make it available for distribution, and then run more of a traditional campaign where maybe you're marketing, you're doing social media, you're doing whatever to ramp up that book before it actually releases on its pub date or publishing date. So once you've opened your account, you've got everything going, you're going to upload your print files or upload your ebook files, and then you can turn those books on for distribution. So what I always recommend folks doing is once you, especially if you're new to the process, it can be a little overwhelming at first. I always tell folks that first book's the most difficult, the second's the second most difficult, and then moving forward, once you get the hang of how it all works, it becomes a much easier process for you. So what you'd want to do is when you set up your print book title, you can go ahead and set that book up, have it available for printing, but not turn it on for distribution, which I highly recommend doing at first, so that you can order 3 or 4 copies for yourself, look them over, make sure you like the cover art, make sure the spine and everything looks good, make sure you don't see any glaring typos or editing that you need to make within the interior files. And then once you look over those first few copies that you've ordered for yourself and you like what you see, then you can go in and turn that book on for distribution. And as I mentioned, you'll start to see it populating at Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, and it'll show up in Ingram's catalog of 16 million titles with all that data going out to the retailers. So what happens, as I just mentioned, is you'll turn that book on for distribution. Ingram's going to send all that metadata, and we'll talk about metadata here in a minute, but they're going to send all that metadata out to all the retailers and libraries out there so that your book is in their systems, in their inventory systems, and is able to be ordered on their normal ordering processes from Ingram. We've talked about the 40,000 Ingram customers that can order your book at any given moment. We're going to use POD to manufacture those print titles, and we will deliver the print and ebook content to the retailers or to the end users based on the order that comes in, and then we will pay you a publisher compensation for that sale that takes place in the market. So why POD makes sense, and POD is just print on demand. There's no inventory to manage. There's no warehousing costs. There's no guesswork regarding demand. So you don't have to say, well, am I going to sell 2,000 units of this title or 200 or 10,000 units of this title or just 100? What you can do is go ahead and have that book available digitally to the market, and we're going to print the book as soon as it's ordered. So we're not sitting on any inventory. We're not pre-printing in advance. We're taking the orders as they come in and fulfilling them as we receive them. There's no orders to pack and ship on your own. So you can tell if you have a relationship with an independent bookstore or a library, you can tell them that your book is available from Ingram, and they know exactly what that means and how to order that book. And there's no other extra work that you have to do yourself. You have access to global distribution. You can revise at any time. So this is really important in that when you're using print on demand as one of your tools in your publishing belt, your most recent, newest book will be the one that's printed the next time an order comes in. So say, for instance, I get a great blurb or great review and I want to add it to my front or back cover. I can go ahead and add that to my cover file, upload the new cover file, and the very next book that's printed will have that new cover file on it with the review I got. Whereas if I was sitting on a bunch of inventory, say I had ordered 2,000 copies that I had, in storage, and I get this great review that I think would really help sell my title, I still have 2,000 books with the cover that does not have that review on it. So by utilizing print on demand, you're able to say, okay, my most up-to-date recent book is available for purchase out in the world. And there's fast turnaround times. And I say that now with us going into Q4, which extends our turnaround times just as it does every year for the holiday season. But in general, ordering books and getting books created, printed, and shipped has always been kind of a lengthy process. With us, you're going to see a much faster turnaround time and getting your books to yourself, drop shipped wherever you need them. And especially for the retail side, we take care of those orders extremely fast. So we prioritize orders that come in from retailers and libraries over orders that are coming in from publishers. So with those folks, when an order comes in from a retail market, we're getting those books out within 24 to 48 hours of receiving the order. So some things to know about distribution. It takes some time, and especially depending on the distribution partner. We try to make things in this day and age so fast and so quick. And really, if you look at the timelines and turnaround times compared to what it used to be for traditional publishing, it's extremely fast. But it still does take time to get your book out there, to get it known, to see retailers update their sites with your information. We will send the information out as soon as you hit the button to send it out for distribution. But just because we feed a retailer the information, it is still up to that retailer to update their own sites with the new information that they're receiving from Ingram all the time. So a lot of times you'll see, especially like Amazon can kind of drag a little bit as you see the book populate on their site. You may just see the metadata at first or just the cover image, and then you kind of see it come together over a business week or so. It may say out of stock, and that's because Amazon has not ordered any of the books yet. So therefore it's not sitting in any of their DCs as it being in stock through the Amazon. So it's just takes time to see all that come together and know that it's not just you that's happening to you. It just happens in general because of all the metadata that's being received by these retailers every 4 hours from us. I heard some of the conversation you were having earlier about, working with a traditional publisher or a hybrid publisher and how the author still has to do all the promoting. That's the same with us. We are your logistics and printing crew. So as the publisher, you would still be the one that is marketing your book to people so they know when and where to buy your book. If you are in a conversation, as I mentioned, with a retailer or a library, you're going to let them know that your book is available from Ingram. And so to get rid of any kind of confusion there, if I was talking to a reader that I know was wanting to buy my book and I knew my book was available through Ingram, I would tell that reader, hey, you can buy that book anywhere books are sold. They could even walk into their local independent bookstore. It's more than likely not going to be at the shelf at the time they walk in or on the shelf at the time they walk in, but they can place a special order with their favorite independent retailer or independent bookstore, and that bookstore will be able to fulfill that order for them in the amount of time it takes them to receive their regular Ingram orders. If I was talking to a retailer, a librarian, a bookseller, that's when I would say my book is available from Ingram, because they will know exactly what that means and how to get the book. A reader, I'm going to actually send to a retail location or a retail site to order the book. Retailers and libraries prefer to order their books from Ingram. It makes their life a lot easier because they can order all those 16 million different titles from Ingram on one PO and one order and receive it one time. So they can order their Macmillan titles, their PRH, their Simon & Schuster, and your book all in the same order, on the same shipment, in the same PO. And that's how they restock their shelves as it is when they're not buying direct from the publisher. So it really helps the retailers and libraries when your book's available from Ingram to just flow into their normal processes of ordering titles. Another important note, Ingram is not directly selling your book into stores. So there again, that would be on you, the publisher, to be marketing and taking advantages of services and advertising services that are out there to get your book visible in front of booksellers and librarians. You just need to know that if it's at Ingram, those folks will know how to order the book for themselves once they discover your title. And then changes to metadata like pricing. We're sending out our data feeds about every 4 hours. So once a week now on Fridays, we will update pricing and market discounts and return status. So you may have set your title at, say, a $14.99 and see that, you know what, most of the other books that are the same genre and in the same space are selling at $17.99. So maybe I'm leaving $1 or $2 on the table per copy and I want to update my retail price. You can go in and make that request to change the retail price to whatever you need to, whether you're going to raise it or lower it. And you can go in and change the market discount we're going to talk about here in a minute, or the return status. And we will update that information in our data feeds every Friday. We used to do it once a month, and now we do it once a week. So some pre-distribution advice for authors. So what I always try to stress to independent authors especially is quality over quantity. Don't get so caught up, and this is just my advice, don't get so caught up in the unit price per copy and knowing that, hey, if I buy 5 or 10,000 copies, my unit price drops dramatically compared to me, ordering 100 or making it available through print on demand or making it, using that option. What I would rather you spend your money on is making the book the most professional book that you can possibly have. So you want to work with professional editors, cover designers, people who understand books and what it takes to create the book. A lot of people say you don't judge a book by its cover, but in the book world, you do judge a book by its cover. When you walk into a bookstore and you look at the shelf, the first thing that grabs your attention is that cover. So you want to work with a professional who can design you a unique, striking cover that's going to grab the attention of somebody walking by or somebody seeing it on the internet. You also want to work on your copy edit. So a lot of things that we talk about in the retail market is, the cover, the front cover is supposed to make me pick up the book. When I flip that book over, the back copy is supposed to what makes me take that book to the cash register. So that's where your reviews, your blurbs, your elevator pitch or description of the book, all on that back cover is what's supposed to make me, the reader, carry that to the cash wrap and check and order the book. So there again, invest in editing, design, and marketing. Go standard on your binding and trim sizes. This is very important if you're interested in seeing your book on bookstore and library shelves. A lot of folks don't realize that bookstores and libraries shelves have been built the same ways for decades and in the same dimensions to hold books of standard trim sizes. So what I would mean by that is if you're doing a fiction title or, anything like a book of poetry or, what you want to do is make sure that you're staying in that genre's trim size. So if I was just doing a general fiction title, I'm definitely going to be a 5.5 by 8.5, a 5 by 8, or 6 by 9, because that's what all the books in that genre are typically in that size. And that's what the shelves are built to hold. A lot of times, if you go into a bookstore and you go in and you see a stack of books on the floor that are not shelved, if you look at those books, they're usually oddly trim sized. They're too big or too small for the genre in which that book was written, and it doesn't fit on the shelf. And the bookseller or the library or bookseller specifically will say, I don't have anywhere to put this. It doesn't fit on the shelf, so we just kind of lay it on the ground. So what you're doing by not going standard is taking your book out of contention of being seen by a reader who's going to be shopping that genre. You definitely want to make use of social media to build your author platform and readership. Our most successful indie author publishers going through IngramSpark are extremely social media savvy. These folks know how to talk to their audience. They know how to introduce their books to their readers. They know how to create content online that engages their readers. So what I always recommend folks to do is, especially somebody like me, I don't have any social media. LinkedIn's about all I got. So I don't do any social media. But if I was an author with a book out there for sale, you better bet that I would be on every platform that I possibly could. And what I would do is find the authors that I know are successful. Not necessarily the big major authors that everybody knows, but maybe some of these indie authors that you know who are doing very well and being very successful with their business, is to start to follow them on their social media and watch how they engage with their audience. Watch how they cross-pollinate with other authors who are in the same genres. That's one of the best pieces of advice I can give is that within the social media platform, you're not working against another author. You're all working for the same purpose. So you should definitely be networking like you were talking about for the pre-meeting here, but networking and linking up to the social media accounts and following your friends and other authors who are going down the same path as you, because what you're doing is you're going to have readerships crossing over, and you're able to teach your readers about an author that you know, and they can do vice versa for you. So word of mouth is definitely the best way to sell a book. You don't know how readers prefer to purchase your books. So you want to use all the distribution options available to you. KDP, Amazon, we like to call them cooperative competition. As I mentioned, if you go through IngramSpark, we're going to list your book at Amazon, and Amazon's orders from Ingram just like every other retailer out there. Well, if you go through Amazon KDP and you sign up for their expanded distribution, that's actually Ingram. That's where Amazon is making use of Ingram's distribution network to get your book in front of these other outlets. There's a nuance to that. Whereas if you go through Amazon KDP only and you sign up for their expanded distribution, that book enters Ingram's catalog coming over from Amazon. But at that point, it's what we call a short discount. So, and I'll talk about the difference in discounts here in a second, but that book comes in at a discount through Ingram and made available to retailers at a much lower discount than they're used to getting from a wholesaler like Ingram on the titles. Another thing, when you go through Amazon KDP to get to Ingram, your book is automatically non-returnable. That's just the parameters that Amazon has set on the titles they're sending over. So what happens is all of a sudden your book is going through KDP to Ingram's catalog, but it's coming in at a discount that retailers that's smaller than retailers are used to getting on all the other books they buy, and the book is non-returnable, which is very much hinders you in the independent bookstore and the Barnes & Noble worlds. So it's not that you shouldn't use both. I recommend using both because you're going to reach your fullest audience. You're going to have Amazon's audience who they reach when you're going through them, and you're going to have Ingram's audience that you reach when you're going through IngramSpark. Now, if I said choose one or the other, I would definitely say IngramSpark because we cover both Amazon and the rest of the other markets, and you're in full control of everything. But if you're going to use everything available to you, you should definitely be using both so that you're getting the widest reach and the widest discoverability possible by the two of the major players out there. You want to network professionally. There again, you've already joined the organizations that you're in now, and even with MEPA tonight, you're networking, you're meeting other authors, you're able to ask questions. I mean, it's some of the most useful information that you're going to get is talking to other folks who have done the process, who have been through it, who have seen the ups and downs and what it takes to be successful and not. So I just highly recommend joining all the organizations that you can and networking and connecting with the authors going through the process the same as you. And then something else that's extremely important is having great metadata. So what is metadata and why does it matter? Metadata equals discoverability, and that's why it matters. So when we're talking about metadata, or you hear anybody speak of metadata, it is all that bibliographical information and all the different attributes and items that are associated with your title or with your book. So that's going to be the title, the author name, your author bio. BISAC codes are very important. You can choose up to 3 within IngramSpark, but you definitely want to choose at least 3 different BISAC codes, because what that does is that really drills into what the book's about and what realm it fits in. And as a reader, you know, if I'm looking for a women's fiction title, I definitely want to know if I'm looking for historical or modern. So there's so many different little subcategories under the main BISAC that you can choose. So you really want to hone in on what this book is about, who's my audience that I'm going after, and picking those BISAC codes appropriately. Description, short description. This is your elevator pitch. So you should have the description of your title that is lengthy that you're including in your metadata, but you should also have a short description. And you know, you should be able to tell me about your book in less than 2 minutes. So there again, that's that old elevator pitch saying, but you want to be able to take your lengthy description and get it down into just a few sentences of why a reader or somebody should be bringing this title in. Keywords and reviews and endorsements are very important. Keywords are very important, as you would want to choose keywords that are outside your BISAC code. And what I mean by keywords, it's no different than going into Google and you're looking for a specific topic. And so you just type in what that topic is in a roundabout way and see what comes up. Well, you're entering keywords when you do that. And it's the same with your book. So if I was writing a crime thriller or, a lawyer-based fiction title, I'm going to use some keywords in there that are going to very much resemble stuff that you would see coming out of a John Grisham. If I was going to go search for a John Grisham book, you want to use words like lawyer. You want to use words about what the case is against. You want to use words like what city the book has taken place in or the story has taken place in, because that becomes very relevant to the reader. You want to know your audience. A lot of folks feel that their book is good for anybody. So they'll say, my audience is 0 to 99 or 12 years old to 99. Well, what you're doing is you're not really honing in on the demographic. And when you get to the point that you're actually working with bookstores and libraries and they're putting your books on their shelves, they're the ones who really want to know who the audience is for this title, because they want to know where to put the book so that it's best discovered by the audience that would be buying this title. So you just really want to have an understanding of who your demographic is once you've completed these books, and who are going to be the folks that are really going to be buying these books. ISBNs for distribution, which I'm sure you're all familiar with ISBNs. Through IngramSpark, you can do pricing in global markets. And this is very important in that if you want to see your book available in the UK or Australia within your IngramSpark account, you would need to put in the UK pricing for that title and the Australian pricing for that title. And it's going to be different across markets. A book sells for a lot more money in Australia than it does in the US, just based on transportation cost and cost of production and just the Australian market. And same with the UK. So what you want to do is kind of get an understanding, if my book is priced in a certain way in the US, what would that price look like in Australia or Europe or UK? You want to include your print attributes, so the size, the number of pages, whether it's a black and white interior, color interior. And when you're going through the IngramSpark setup, all that information is getting put in as you add it, but it's just really important. And I'll show you what it looks like when it goes out to retailers once you've entered all this information. I guess what I'm trying to say is that within the IngramSpark title setup process, you'll see some red asterisks on some of the fill in the blanks. And those red asterisks we obviously require before the book can keep advancing. But the ones that do not require the red asterisks, you definitely want to fill those out too. You want to have the most robust metadata you can possibly have with your title, so that when that book information goes out into the world and a reader or a retailer or somebody is searching these catalogs and searching systems for a specific type of book, your attributes and your data points are getting pulled into these searches, and it keeps that book more discoverable for every single data point that you have, because it makes it show up in actual searches. So retail discount. So this is something we have mentioned a few times. So as the publisher going through IngramSpark, you're going to see a field that asks you what your market discount is. So the market discount is very important in that as the publisher, you're selling the book to Ingram, the wholesaler, at a discount off the retail price that you set. And in the IngramSpark platform, you can choose a 30% discount all the way up to 55. And really your discount is dictating what the business model is for your title. So if I'm going to be driving folks online to a bookshop.org, my independent bookstore's website, barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, and that's the only place that I really see my sales are going to be taking place. And I'm not so concerned with the independent bookstores or Barnes and Nobles, not seeing my book on their shelves, because maybe I'm a debut author. Maybe I'm still a young novice author who just doesn't have the track record of in-store sales, but I know I can sell the book online, and I know that that's where my folks prefer, my readership prefers to buy their titles. I'm going to put in that lower discount, because what happens is you'll see on the calculator, I'm going to show you in a second, that's available at IngramSpark.com, is your discount is directly going to affect what your publisher compensation is for when the book sells. So if I know that my marketing and what I'm doing is driving people to online outlets to buy the book, I'm probably going to put in a 40% discount on that title. 40% still entices retailers to show it, as available as possible in stock, but I'm not giving what we call the full trade discount of 53% or more. So as I mentioned earlier, going through KDP, when your book enters Ingram's ecosystem or Ingram's catalog from the KDP expanded distribution, they're having what we call a short discount on it. They have a discount that is not at least 53% that they're selling the book into Ingram at. Well, what happens is a lot of times you'll speak to an independent bookstore or Barnes and Noble, and they'll say, hey, I need at least a 40% discount on that title. And what happens is, as an author and the retailer, the conversation about the middleman of Ingram kind of goes away, or the middle company entity in the middle goes away. And what happens is the author will go into their IngramSpark account and put 40% as the market discount. And then when they go back to the retailer and say, hey, I updated my discount, the retailer says, no, I'm still not getting my regular Ingram discount on this title. I need at least 40%. And it gets a little confusing. The problem is in that situation is that you, as the author publisher, are selling your book into Ingram at a 40% discount. So therefore, Ingram as a company cannot turn around and sell it to their retailers, libraries at a 40, selling it at a loss. So if you are going to be out targeting bookstores and libraries to have their books on their shelves, specifically bookstores, libraries have a different budget and a different terms of process that we'll talk about here in a little bit, but specifically brick and mortar retail outlets for your books to have them be placed on the shelves, you're going to want to have a 53% discount as your market discount, because that would allows Ingram to buy it at 53% from you whenever it sells in the market. And then they can turn around and sell it to that retailer at whatever regular discount they're used to getting on every book that they buy from Ingram, whether it's a PRH, a Simon & Schuster, Macmillan, or yours. They're going to get the same terms on that order that they're used to getting on every book that they order. And then the return status on that is very important too. So there again, think about your business model. If I'm driving folks to online outlets and retail outlets to buy my book, and that's where I know that I'm going to do the majority of my sales and have the most success, I'm going to do the smaller discount of 40%. This is just me, as if I were the author. I would do the smaller discount and make it non-returnable, because the non-returnable option means that book is not going to come back to me once the retailer orders it. And if I'm driving people online to buy my book, what I'm doing is I'm driving the end user to the retailer to facilitate that order. So if I were to order your book from, say, Amazon or barnesandnoble.com or bookshop.org, there's no risk for that online retailer. All they're doing is receiving my order and money and then facilitating the transaction. Now, if you're going to be marketing to independent bookstores and bricks and mortar, it's a little different, because the end reader is not in the equation yet. What you're doing is you're telling that retailer, hey, this book's good enough that it is going to potentially sell to a reader who comes in looking for me because of the marketing and who I am and what I've done, or it's going to catch their eye and it's relevant to your community or relevant to your local audience. and that this is the reason it's going to sell. This is what I'm going to do to help drive traffic to the store. But still, as a retailer, I'm taking a gamble because I only have so much shelf space. I can only carry so many different unique books within the shelf space that I have. You're telling me it's like buying stocks. You're telling me that if I take my money out of my back pocket or out of my purse or out of our cash wrap and order this book to bring in, I'm hoping that it does sell. I need that full 53, well, it's not 53 to them, but I need that full regular discount, what we call a full trade discount on the title, so that I know exactly what it cost me to order it. I know that if it's returnable and it does not sell, I at least have the option to return it and try to recoup some of the money I spent on it. And I believe that this is a book that would be fitting to my local audience. So there's a lot more risk in a retailer bringing a book in and putting it on their shelves than there is an online retailer facilitating a transaction. So that's why you see when you're going into the brick and mortars that they are asking for a 40% discount or higher, depending on whatever their discount is they receive. They're doing that because they need that book to fit in the same model as everything else in there, because they are taking a risk saying, I hope this book sells. So that's, again, thinking about your business model is if I'm a debut or maybe a not so well-known author, but I know I can drive sales online, I'm going to come out with the shorter discount, the smaller discount, and non-returnable. And then if I get popular enough, the book gets enough demand and it shows that it does warrant, a bookstore reaching out to me, because what a lot of times will happen is you start out that way. And as you get more savvy or the book, gains speed or traction, all of a sudden you have retailers that say, hey, I want this title. It happens all the time. I work with Barnes & Noble, Target, Walmart, all the independent bookstores. And it'll happen all the time that they'll say, hey, we've seen this book. We don't know, it's selling like crazy, but the book is a short discount non-returnable. And that's when you say, well, yes, that's what the publisher's designated. But then as the publisher author, you start seeing that demand. And if that is something that's been a dream of yours to see, retailers carrying your book, then you can say, okay, I've done very well online. It's obviously gained enough notoriety that retailers and libraries are noticing, and they're interested in buying my book. Now I'm going to make the business decision of, do I want to go full trade discount and returnable? And then that's when you would go into your IngramSpark account, update those terms. We would update them on Friday to the market. And then, that following week, that book is available at the terms that the retailers are used to getting. So, it's all on you. You get all that power to make those business decisions on what kind of business model you want to run for each book. You may have a book that is going into the retail market and that stores are going to want. So you put full trade terms on it. And then a book that may be a debut series or a different line of genre than you're used to writing, and you're not really sure what kind of demand or traction you're going to have. And then you start out with the online sales for that and see if it progresses into in-store sales. So for pre-orders, one important note for IngramSpark, another point that causes some confusion is within the IngramSpark account setup, you can place a publication date and then a street date. And those two terms mean something totally different to each part of the industry. It means something different to a publisher than it does to a retailer, than it does to an online retailer. And so if you're going to do a pre-order campaign, so if I have a book that I know that I'm going to release December 1st, that's the launch date, that's the pub date, and I want to go ahead and make it available so I can start marketing and doing media and trying to get some back orders going for that launch, or some pre-orders going for that launch, then what I'm going to do is make the publication date and the on sale date or street date, whichever it's titled there. I'm going to make both those dates December 1st, 2021. And what that means to everybody across the board is that, yes, this book is out and it's available for back orders and pre-orders, but it does not launch until December 1st. And then that's when, the orders you're placing will be received and going back out. So that's just for those who are used to that traditional method there, that if you are running pre-order campaigns, to make sure those two dates within your IngramSpark account are the day that you want the book to actually launch. So here's some of the metadata out in the world. This is Ingram iPage. So this is the catalog that I was talking about that Ingram has, that all the retailers and libraries have access to. They have their own accounts. It's very much like any other online site search engine. There's keyword search at the top. So a lot of times, when I was talking about with the metadata, why it's important is you'll have somebody come into a retailer and they walk up to the bookseller and they say, hey, I'm looking for this title. I know it just came out. My friends have been telling me about it. I cannot remember, or I'm looking for this book. I cannot remember the title of the book. It's got a blue cover. There's a white, beach chair on the front with a golden sun. It's about, it's about this murder mystery in North Carolina. I just can't think of the title. Well, what they're doing as you're describing that, and you see them clicking away on the computer, is they're actually in Ingram's catalog searching those words that you were saying so that they can narrow down to what book it is you may be talking about. And then as they pull the list, they'll have all the titles show up, and it just helps them to narrow down on what kind of book you as the reader were describing, because of all that metadata that was entered is built into these search engines, and it's shifting through all that information as you're typing in the keywords. So another thing that's really important to notice here on this screen, I mentioned going to IngramSpark directly gives you complete control of the book. So you can set the retail price, you can set the market discount, and you can set the return status. So if I was an author or publisher talking to a bookseller about bringing my book into their store, there again, I probably know the title and ISBN since I'm the one pitching it, but what they're going to do is they're going to go, as they're talking to them, you'll see them clicking or hear them clicking over the phone. And what they're doing is pulling your title up in Ingram's iPage so they can get all the information they need on that title. And so this particular book, which we're doing an updated version on with our new website releases, is the IngramSpark Guide to Independent Publishing. So if I'm telling a retailer about this title, they pull it up in iPage, they're going to say, okay, I see all the information I need here. I see the ISBN. I see the publisher is Graphic Arts Books or whatever your publishing company name is. So when you're going to IngramSpark directly, it just shows whatever publishing company you're naming yourself as. And so that shows up and I'm like, okay, I know who the publisher is. I know the ISBN. I know it's available in stock at Ingram. I see highlighted there in the middle of the page that I get my regular discount. So as a retailer, I'm conditioned to go, oh, I know exactly what my discount title is on that, because as the author publisher, we put a 53% discount on this book, meaning that the retailer is going to get the same discount they're used to getting on every other book from Ingram. They can see that. And I don't know if you can see it on the screen at the bottom, but it also shows the return status, whether the book is returnable or non-returnable. So what we're trying to do here is lower the barrier of entry into the retail market. Because a lot of times, and I have a lot of book selling friends and bookstore owners that I've worked with over the years, they can discount a book right away from within 2 seconds of looking at this page, because they can look at the publishing name and see if it's one of Amazon KDP's, publishing names or entities that they use when they're pushing their books through Ingram, and they all of a sudden know that, hey, this book isn't really coming from Ingram, it's an Amazon product that's coming to us, which they have their own reservations on. They can see the discount. So if it's only coming to us through Amazon KDP and you're not going directly to IngramSpark, where it says discount reg, it's going to say something like discount 25%. So right now they know, okay, not only is it not coming from the publisher directly through Ingram, I'm only getting a 25% discount on this title when I'm used to getting a minimum of 40% on the books that I bring in store. And then they're going to see that it's non-returnable, because with all the titles that come to us to KDP, it's going to say non-returnable at the bottom, just it's the way the terms are set. And so right away, they're going to say, okay, you're not necessarily the publisher of this title, because from here, it looks like KDP supplying it to the market. I don't get my full discount on this title that I'm used to getting on every other publisher's title I get, and it's non-returnable. So if this thing doesn't sell, there's nothing I can do with it. I'm just out the money I spent on it. So by coming through IngramSpark directly, and all of a sudden your publishing name is there, you've controlled the discount of what it's going to say, whether it says reg or a smaller discount, and you've controlled the return status. So in this scenario, as a bookseller, I look at it and say, well, I know who the publisher is, I know what kind of discount, and I know it's returnable. Those 3 barriers of entry have been knocked down. Now, what is the content of this book? Who's your audience? Why should I bring this in? Are you going to drive traffic to my store to buy this book? You start having conversations about the book beyond just the terms, which is an easy way for a retailer to just kind of discount a title and say, no, that's just not what I'm used to carrying. So that's one of the main advantages of going through IngramSpark, is that you're in control of everything. Here again, same book, metadata is going out to Amazon. You're going to see it populated Amazon, the description, the ISBN, price. A lot of confusion that happens with Amazon is on the price. So say, just for sake of argument, I have a book that I've got at $17.99 retail price. And all of a sudden one day I see it at Amazon for $11.99, $7.99. And you're like, well, that's not the retail price I set on the book. That is Amazon's prerogative. And just same as any retailer's prerogative, they can sell a book at whatever price they deem worthy selling it at, but they have to buy it from Ingram at the price that you set. So in that scenario of maybe see the book listed somewhere for $7.99, well, that entity is still having to buy the book from Ingram at the $17.99 that I set as the publisher, and then whatever discount Ingram is giving that company, based on the market discount that I've added. So I may be a retailer that's buying it at $17.99 and getting my 40% discount, but I've, for some reason, marked it down to $7.99. I'm taking a loss as a retailer when I sell that book. And that happens quite a bit on this site, is that you'll see books selling at a price well below what the publisher set, and they are willing to take a loss on that title to drive traffic to the site and to sell other items beyond the books. So that's something just important to know, that no matter what price you see it set at a retailer or in a store, they still had to buy it at the price you set as the author publisher from Ingram. And then same book, appearing at barnesandnoble.com. So let's talk about setting your book up for retail success. And a lot of this is going to kind of be rehashing some of the things I talked about. Global pricing, adding pricing in other countries. You definitely want your book to be as discoverable as possible. So Dr. Pete is, he manages owns a pain clinic there in Kansas City. It's just a pain remedy clinic. And he had done a book with us a couple of years ago, got to me through a friend of mine that owns a bookstore there in Kansas City. And they came to me and I talked to Dr. Pete, and what he was doing was simply creating a supplement book, a book to go along with his program. So when his patients were going home or they weren't there for treatment, they still had a book at their house where they could do the practices for the remedies and medication or healing that they were needing to get done without him having to be there and just kind of give them hold their hand every step of the way. He just wanted something for his I guess we want to call it clients to take home and just have that reading material on hand for whenever they needed it. And so he asked me one time, he was like, well, what's all this global pricing about? I don't really, I don't think my book's going to sell to anyone. It's not for the general public. It's just more around, the remedies that we practice at my clinic. And I said, yeah, but it doesn't cost you anything. And you just never know. You want that book to be out in the world and extremely, just as discoverable as it can be. You never know who's going to be looking for your book. And so sure enough, it was about 2 months later, he called me and he said that, I'm so glad that I set up that global pricing on this title. He said there was a lady in France who had some ailments that fit what my clinic helps remedy. And she was searching online and my book popped up because I had it set up for the rest of world, distribution. My book popped up, she ordered it, loved it. She became a virtual member of my clinic and told 20 of her other friends about it. He said, I got 20 new clients, all because I made that book available, and somebody in France found it who I would have never even thought about, ever meeting or coming in contact with. So he got 20 new clients to his clinic just because he made a book discoverable to the world and somebody was searching for exactly what he had written about. So global pricing is extremely important just because you never know who's looking for the type of content that you've written. The wholesale discount we've discussed, that's the 30 to 55%. Trade discount, whenever you hear somebody say full trade or trade discount, they're talking about making that book available at the regular discount to retailers. That means you're putting that 53% on it. And that happens with traditional publishers too. Traditional publishers who are sending large quantities of stock into Ingram are also having to sell it into Ingram at that 53, 55, sometimes 60% discount, so that Ingram can turn around and sell it to the retailers and libraries at the prices they're used to getting, or the terms they're used to getting. So trade discount or full trade means you've got that full 53% on there. When you hear me say short discount, you have anything below 53%, meaning that a retailer is not going to get their normal discount on the title when they order it from Ingram. Non-returnable. So there again, books cannot come back. Once the book sells through Ingram to the outside channels, to the outside world, that book is no longer able to come back. So if you do choose to make your book returnable, there's two options. You have return destroy and return ship. Return destroy means, yes, I'm going to be able to accept that return back and I'm going to take the penalty on the return. So what's going to happen is If I sell 10 copies of a book, out into the world, and 5 come back returnable, well, in return destroy, Ingram is going to accept the returns on the book, and then they're going to break the book down, destroy it, and recycle it, and do everything they can to make it as green as possible at destroying that book. And then as the publisher, you're going to see where we're going to take money out of your publisher compensation because the return came back. So we have to recoup that publisher compensation we gave you for a sale that never actually completed. It went out into the world, but came back. So we need to recoup that publisher compensation. And you paid the printing price to IngramSpark. IngramSpark is a printer. We make money when we print books. So in the next math that you'll see coming up, you'll see what we would make in the math equation. But whenever you see print costs, that is IngramSpark making money for printing books. And that's the only way we make money. And so that's one of the main reasons I like doing this too, is the more savvy you are as an author and as a publisher, and the more successful you are, the more books we get to print. And that's ultimately, selfishly my goal is to print as many books as possible. And then return ship. So return ship is saying, okay, same scenario. The return comes back. I'm going to have my publisher compensation that I got paid, but I'm going to have to, pay it back because the book came back. And then return ship means we're actually going to ship that book to you, the author publisher, at, I believe in the US, it's a $2 per unit cost there. And so you're going to get the shipping back of that title. So you'll get the book back. And it's really important to understand what kind of life that book has lived when you make the decision of return ship. Because a lot of times what will happen is those books will come back and they'll look great. And you're like, hey, these, they got returned. I lost out on the pub comp and print costs, but I can still sell these books and recoup my money back. So I'll sell them, whatever ways I'm doing it directly, selling books myself or use them at events or as giveaways, all that good stuff. But a lot of times too, the books would come back and they look really beat up. And you say, why is this book so beat up if it was just a new book that was printed that never, that nobody ever bought, but yet it's coming back to me. So say, for instance, it's an independent bookstore that bought your book and it comes in, well, that book was printed and then, flows through our facilities, gets into UPS or FedEx, gets shipped, goes through their handling process and facilities, gets to the bookstores, received in the back room by the receiving team. It's open, put through their processes, put out on the shelf. Maybe somebody's picked it up a couple times and thumbed through it and didn't buy it, put it back on the shelf. That book gets returned. It goes back through receiving at the bookstore. It goes back through UPS's, FedEx's processes, comes back to the Ingram facilities where it gets received. And then since it's not destroyed, we know we need to ship it back out to the publisher. So we put it back through our processes, goes back to FedEx, UPS, and finally to you. And that book has lived a long, hard life and had a long road traveled, even though it didn't make it to an end reader. It still had a rough road just going through all those different shipping and handling and processes. So it's not to say that, I'm not trying to say return ship is not a good option. I'm just saying, don't be surprised sometimes if you do the return ship option that a book looks a little beat up because it may have had a hard life getting back to you. And then there again, the return policy, the authors charge the wholesale price of the book back. So that is the discount price of the book back. And I'll show you how that works. So there's calculators on the IngramSpark website. So without even having an IngramSpark account, you can go to www.ingramspark.com. You can click on resources and click on calculators. And there's 3 calculators there. One's the spine width calculator, which you'll need for your book design. But the other 2 are the most important to you. It's going to be the printing and shipping calculator and the publisher compensation calculator. So the printing and shipping calculator is what it's going to tell you what it costs you to order books for yourself. And another important thing to think about in that scenario is that you kind of think of IngramSpark as twofold service. I've got my book available for me to order as many copies as I want. Since it's print on demand, I can order all the way down to 1 copy if I need, but I'm going to order however many copies I need for myself. Now I can have those books shipped to me, obviously, because I'm the one ordering the books for myself, but you can also drop ship those books anywhere in the world. So when you're going through the printing and shipping calculator, you'll see in the very last selection of information there is, do I want this book printed in the US, UK, or Australia? Since Ingram owns our print facilities in the US, UK, and Australia, you can actually choose those as where you want the book printed from. So say I made friends with a teacher in Australia who I've connected with. She really liked my book, and she wanted to bring 20 books in for her classroom for the next semester. I could literally go into And say in this scenario, her school does not have the ability to order from Ingram. So she's like, yeah, our school doesn't order from Ingram. How else could I get your book? You could obviously send them to an online retailer to buy the book, but they're paying full price, full market price for that title. Or you could say, you know what? I'll send you 20 copies myself. So you could go into your IngramSpark account, place an order for 20 copies of your title, choose the Australian print facility so that it prints in country in Australia and is shipping in country in Australia to save you a ton of time and money in transit, and put that teacher's address as the ship to address. And she would receive those 20 copies of the book in an unmarked box. It's just going to have the packing slip in it. There's no pricing information or anything. And the return address is actually your address on your account. So Ingram's not written on anything. IngramSpark is not written on anything. It literally looks like it came from your publishing warehouse. And in that scenario, I would say, okay, I'm going to send 20 books to this teacher in Australia. So I'm going to go in, place an order for 20 copies. I'm going to choose the Australian print facility and her address. And then I'm going to pay for the order myself with my credit card on file. And then the books are going to get printed and shipped to her. And then whatever I charge her outside of that is between me and the teacher. So maybe I want to give her a 30% discount off the retail price. I can do that because I only paid printing plus shipping on the order. And I can charge that individual or that entity whatever price we decide. That's between me and them. Ingram has nothing to do with that. They just printed and got the order where it needed to go. So there's different models there to think about when you're working, on selling these titles. Not only is your book available to the retail market, but it's also available for you to order and print and ship wherever you need to go and work out your own invoice with an entity that you're selling it to. So it's just a good practice to keep in mind. So when you're going through, you're going to set up your book title. You're going to go in, you're going to open your IngramSpark account. You're going to have your cover PDF file. You're going to have your interior PDF file. And then you're just going to kind of go through, and the way that we've laid out the website now, it's more imagery than actual just text. So you're going to go through and you're just going to start clicking the different aspects of the book. You're going to click whether it's a paperback or hardcover, black and white or color interior, what type of paper, whether you want white, cream, or ground wood. You're going to put in your trim sizes. And what will happen is every time you make an option or choice, the new next option you need to pick will populate up on the screen under that. So a lot of people get confused, and it can be confusing when you look at the website in that they don't see the option for trim size. Well, it's because they haven't chosen the paper option yet. So you have to go through each step and choose the option that's being asked of you, and then you'll see the next option populate in that setup process. So let's talk about calculating your publisher compensation. So this is where all that talk I've done about retail price, about the market discount, and the print cost all come into play. So what you see on the screen here is an example of a what do we have here? We have a 6x9, 300-page book. And at the time this was done, it would be $481 to print. So we know that, okay, I've got a 6x9 black and white interior, 300-page paperback book that cost me $4.81 per copy to print. Well, I've put a retail price of $20 on there and a wholesale discount of $53 because my marketing strategy or my track record says, hey, I am going to be relevant to independent bookstores, Barnes & Nobles, Books A Millions, the chain bookstores as well. I'm going to be relevant, and that's who I'm going to be trying to reach out to. That's who I'm interested in carrying my book. I want to see it in the stores. I want to see it on the shelves. So I'm going to put that full trade 53% discount on there. So I've got a retail price of $20. And so every time that book sells to an outlet, whether it's an online retailer or a brick and mortar retailer, Ingram's going to receive that order, and they're going to buy it from me, the publisher, Ingram is, at a 53% wholesale discount that I'm offering, which means Ingram is paying $9.40 wholesale price for that book. And so what the math works out is, okay, so Ingram's buying he's buying the book for $9.40 from me to go sell to their customer. I know that the print cost is $4.81, and that's what IngramSpark keeps as the printer. They're going to keep the $4.81 as the print cost. That leaves me $4.59 in compensation that would get directly deposited into my bank account every time one of these books sells. And so something else to think about on the publisher compensation is we pay 90 days out from the end of the month in which the book sold. So what that means, if I sold a book on January 2nd, that went, a book sold through Ingram on January 2nd, I had another 5 sell, January 11th, and then I had another 4 sell January 30th. that was 10 books that went out the door in January. I'm going to get paid for those 10 books into my checking account 90 days from the end of January. So no matter what time or what day the book sold in January, we just accumulate all those orders for the month, and then you're paid 90 days out from the month of the sales. It just continuously goes. So setting your titles up for pre-sales, kind of already went through most of this right here. You just want to make sure the most important thing to do is make sure your pub date and your future on sale date are the same date, so that there's no confusion across the industry whatsoever with when that book is going to be available for retailers to sell. You want to start marketing your book to bookstores and readers early. So if I've got my book out there, the reason you do pre-order campaigns is to go ahead and get a backlog of orders coming in from the readers, from the bookstores. And that way, when the book releases, it's not releasing just fresh with zero sales. You've already done some work, you've already done some groundwork, and you've got some sales that have already came in for that book. So when it does release, it's going out into the world, and you kind of already started down the path. And there again, that's something that's a very traditional mindset that you don't have to do. It's not one way or the other. It's just, that's a traditional mindset in publishing, in the publishing world. So a lot of people like to stick to that. And then also, being print on demand, being self-publishing authors, being independent authors and publishers, you also have the ability of relevancy. Something just happened, in the world that you were writing about, or something just happened, an event that is extremely relevant to your title, and you don't need to wait on pre-orders. You want to go ahead and get the book out because you want to strike while the iron's hot. Then yeah, you would just go ahead and put the book out, put the pub date and the on sale date as tomorrow, and then that book will be available to the world tomorrow. It's just that you do have the ability to do a traditional style of marketing and media if you so choose to. So notes for retail success: check the price of comp titles. So comp titles is comparable titles. So if you're unsure what kind of retail price you should set on your book, what I always tell folks to do is go down to your local brick and mortar, go down to your local independent, go down to your local Barnes and Noble or chain bookstore, go to the shelf in which your book will be sitting on, and you'll see this in some of the other points here. Go to the genre shelf, go to the shelf that my book would be sitting on, and then I'm going to pick out books that are extremely similar to mine. If I've got a paperback book, I'm going to pick out other paperback books. If I've got a 6x9, then I'm going to pick out other standard trim size books like the 5.5 by 8.5, the 5x8s, the 6x9s. I'm going to pick those books out. Then I want to pick out books of similar page count. If I've got 300 pages, I'm going to look at books with anywhere from 250 to 350 pages. And I'm going to take all these titles, I'm going to go to the shelf, and I'm going to grab all the books that mine would be rubbing shoulders with that could also be chosen over my book. Similar content. If you've written juvenile fiction, that's what you want to be looking at. So if it's a certain historical type of period or piece, I'm going to be looking at other historical books. So I'm going to look at similar content, similar trim size, similar page count, similar cover type, and then I'm going to lay them out and get a range in mind. I'm going to say, okay, of these 10 books I've picked out, the lowest price in this range is X, the highest price is Y. So I want to know for sure that I want my retail price to land somewhere in that range. And another thing that's that kind of gets backwards is a lot of people think, okay, well, this is the lowest price in this range, so I want to be as close to the lowest price as I can because my book's priced so low and it's going to entice a reader to buy it. But that's actually not the case. It's just like any other product that's out there. Polo shirts are a good example, or golf shirts. Is people are going to pay for value and pay for good content. So if you start racing to the bottom on your retail price, you're actually hindering yourself because you're devaluing your content and saying, well, my book is not as good as these other books that are in the third three-quarter quartile of my range. So all of a sudden I'm saying my book is only as good as the $11.99 books, but it's not as good as the ones that are selling for $18.99. You don't want to devalue your content, because what you're doing is you're taking away margin from yourself by leaving those dollars on the table. That's every book it sells. That's dollars you're leaving on the table that could be going into your pocket, because your book could be selling for more money than what you have it listed for. And retailers will tell you this too, in that they don't want to sell, if there's a genre range, then it's $11.99 to $18.99, and most of the time they're selling the $16, $17.99 price points. Well, they don't have to turn around and sell $11.99 of a book that could be selling for more, because they lose margin on the sale too. So it's very behoove you to make sure that you understand your brand, understand your content, and that you're not devaluing that along the way. because it's hard to make money selling books. It's a volume game. You have to sell a ton. So anytime you can make sure you're not leaving money on the table is extremely important to you and your bottom line. You also want to
Josh, I'm sorry to interrupt here. We've got about 20 minutes left, and
Okay.
Nate's been keeping an eye on the questions. So just so we can leave a few minutes for that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm here at the end. So anyway, so know your manufacturing cost of your book. If it's a Stephen King title that just came out, it doesn't cost as much for them to print a per unit copy of that book. They've just ordered probably 70, 80,000 copies of those books in their first print run. So just make sure that you understand what type of books you're comparing your book to, what type of authors you're comparing your book to, and just fall in that line and understand what your bottom line and what you've spent on your book and what you need as your break-even point for your title. And then you can also make your paperback your retail edition, and then also do a hardcover version of your book for your libraries, because libraries do love the hardcovers because they last longer in circulation. And you can charge more for a hardcover title. People are used to paying more for hardcovers. And you can get away, working with libraries, as you'll see on the next page, you can get away with a smaller discount and non-returnable. Libraries return less than one, if not less than two, or less than two, if not less than 1% of the books they buy, because they're buying them for their patrons to stay in circulation. So when they order those books, they're coming in. A library is also working off a budget that they can work from, whereas an independent retailer and a bookstore owner is working out of their back pocket or out of their own budget to order these books. So it's just a different type of setup. So it's definitely also a little bit of insight is we've seen a trend in hardcover sales spike over the past year and a half. I mean, they're up well over 30% year over year in hardcover books that are selling. And there's not really one explanation to pinpoint on it. It's just within the past almost 18 months, just hardcover sales have really skyrocketed across the board. So it's definitely good to have that hardcover edition out there, because you never know what your readers want. They may want the paperback, they may want the hardcover, they may want the ebook version. You just got to make it available for them to order. For success in libraries, if you really want to be in the libraries and be accepted by the librarians, all you really have to do is get a great library journal or Kirkus or Publisher Weekly review, any type of professional industry review, especially library journal. If you get a solid raving review from library journal, a librarian is going to have a hard time not bringing that book in. I mean, that's their Bible to them on what books are actually quality. And so, and then also once we get past the times we're in and we go back to physical events, if you're looking to get in libraries, every state has its own ALA state show, which is American Library Association. You can go there. I have a lot of publishers that I see at these events that are IngramSpark authors and publishers who will go and order, get their own booth and go to the show and get their books right there in front of librarians and in the hands of booksellers at these different types of shows that are out there. If it's a little too costly for you to do one yourself, I've definitely seen publishers team up together, and maybe 3 of them go in on a booth or 3 of them go in on a table and bring their titles. And that way they're getting the books in front and into the hands of the folks who actually make decisions on buying books and bringing them in. Tips and tricks: be retailer agnostic. When you're doing your marketing and media, I understand that you want to put your book as available at Amazon.com, but the truth of the matter is you should definitely list that. But Amazon doesn't need your help getting foot traffic. Who does need your help getting foot traffic are the independent bookstores, are the chain bookstores, are the bookshop.orgs, the websites for your independent bookstores. So you don't ever want to just say my book's available at Amazon, because if a retailer or a librarian sees that, they automatically know that you're not thinking about the industry as a whole. You're only thinking about driving whatever number ranking you have at Amazon, because Amazon number rankings don't translate to in-store sales. Just because your book's selling so well at Amazon doesn't mean that book's going to sell well in Kansas City based on the audience that's there. So you want to make sure that you're being retail agnostic. If you do have your favorite independent bookstore that you love, or your favorite Barnes & Noble to go to, put their website as the place to buy the book in your marketing materials. We have a ton of independent authors that are very successful doing that. And it just shows that you're savvy, you know what's going on in the industry. Pay attention to barcodes. If you want to see your book at a Barnes & Noble, you're going to have your price in the barcode. That's one of their minimum requirements. So if you go through the small press department at Barnes & Noble and try to get your book in, you'll see in their requirements, they require that retail price in the barcode. We talked about paying attention to prices, make sure that you're doing the best you can or setting the most value for your retail price. Be ready to talk sales numbers. I heard some of that conversation going on earlier about how many books you've sold in the past, how you've done, what you're doing. It's just all very important to put on that business hat and kind of take off the author hat every now and then and sell your title and know the value you add. So tips for successful indie authors. A lot of this comes directly from indie authors who have shared with us what it took for them to be successful. They think of their writing as a way to earn a living, not just a side hobby. They market themselves as a brand online and in person. It's not just their title they're selling their brand, they're selling all of their content, even outside their books. I mean, you are a walking business. And so you have to think of yourself that way. Have the basic marketing tools, a website, your social media, your email management, your blogs, your newsletters, your networking at events and conferences. Those are all things that are just going to help you along the way. They become experts in their field and work with professionals. If I'm doing something that's, maybe it's something that just happened in the news locally. My local news is doing, a book or doing a segment on content that I've just written about. Nothing stops you from calling that local news and saying, hey, I'm an actual expert on this. I've written a book. I would love to come in and just share and talk and, whatever you all need. And they will. They'll say, oh, we have expert X who just wrote this title and we're talking about this segment or this content. And you can get out there and make a name for yourself. Support your book selling community. Definitely send people to the independent bookstores, shop at them yourself, shop at your Barnes and Nobles. Just make sure that you are expanding all the different channels and outlets that you represent when you're trying to sell your titles and when trying to buy books for yourself. Pursue reviews and awards. Definitely, if you get any type of award, put the badge on the cover, put a call out to it on the back cover. Just make sure that you're showing how proud you are of your title. Don't get discouraged by rejection. Rejection is going to happen. It's going to happen a lot, but just don't get discouraged. You just have to keep going until you hit that breakthrough moment. And another main thing is be polite, not rude. And I know that sounds very simplistic, but the book selling industry and the book industry as a whole, as large and expansive as it seems, it's a very small industry of folks who are actually in there making decisions and buying and have buying power. And you never know who you're talking to. They may be a person one day that's in a certain role, and then you run into them again 5 years later, and they're a major decision maker at a major publishing house or a major retailer. So you just always want to make sure that you're just minding your P's and Q's and always being polite, just because even with authors, you never know what author is going to explode. You just want to make sure that you don't leave any kind of negative connotation about yourself, because you never know who that person you're talking to may be down the road. And I already went through all that. And so if you need more help, you can go to IngramSpark.com. We offer free education there. We have our podcast, which is called Go Publish Yourself. It's one of the top rated publishing podcasts out there for self-publishers. We bring in industry experts and we'll do 15 minutes on a certain topic. You can go and learn about how to sell your book to independent bookstores, libraries, Barnes & Noble, Metadata. You can go in and learn about the library market. You can go in there and we take an industry expert from inside of Ingram and outside of Ingram on each of these different podcasts and have them talk for 15 minutes on a specific subject. We also have our IngramSpark author highlights or spotlight series. So you can go in there and hear interviews with actual very, very successful independent authors and publishers and hear them tell them stories and hear them talk about how they got to be successful. They talk about their pitfalls and what worked and what didn't work. So if you ever, and you can listen to these anywhere you listen to podcasts. We have the IngramSpark Academy that we put together. This is an online college style publishing class. You go in, there's different courses and chapters and quizzes and tests that you take. It's very much a college style presentation on different specific topics within self-publishing, and that's free to access for you as well. And then our blog and newsletter, you definitely want to sign up for. It's one of, we have well over 100,000 people that are signed up for this. We bring in industry experts from across the field and talk about different topics and different things that you would want to know. And then this is our unboxing series that you see a lot on social media. If you follow us on social media, we have our authors come on and they open up their boxes for the first time and show their excitement about their books actually being in their hands and created. So I highly recommend following us on social media at all the different platforms, because it's a great way to engage with other authors who are going down the same path you are. And that is it for me.
Thank you, Josh. Okay, Nate Runquist, our president, is here, and he's been keeping an eye on the questions, so he's going to help us get through in the last 10 minutes here.
All right.
We are going to play lightning round here. So the first question we have is from Kira. Could you please explain quickly the difference between Spark and Lightning Source?
Yeah. So I'm trying to stop there. So the difference in Spark and Lightning Source, as I said, IngramSpark is a division within Lightning Source. Lightning Source had their, don't hold me to it, 21st birthday this year, and we had our I want to say our 8th or 9th birthday. So I think it's 8th. But anyway, IngramSpark is a division within Lightning Source. Lightning Source was first created to assist those traditional publishing houses with never letting a book go out of print. Before print on demand, if a book was selling less than 10 or 20 copies a year, it wasn't viable for a publishing house to keep that book alive and have to sit on that inventory in stock and order reorders for books that they're only going to sell 10 copies of a year. So they would discontinue them or take them out of print. So with the invention of Lightning Source, those publishers were able to put those digital files into the Lightning Source platform. And even though they were only selling 10 or 20 copies a year, they were still selling 10 or 20 copies a year without ever having to take that book out of print because they weren't worried about stock. And then about 8 years ago, Lightning Source had grown to the point where we had independent authors who were coming in and trying to use the Lightning Source systems, but they were really the Lightning Source is really built towards a traditional publishing house. There was a lot of publishing lingo, a lot of contracts, a lot of things that a business like a major publishing house is used to working through that independent folks, just authors and small publishers weren't used to dealing with. So we actually created IngramSpark as an access point for those indie authors and small press publishers who were looking to get their books into Ingram through print on demand, who were not necessarily traditional style publishing houses. So, but everything prints through Lightning Source. We are a division of Lightning Source.
All right, next up is from Rachel. When would I need to place an order to get paperback books back in time for the Twin Cities Book Festival, which is October 16?
Today. And I say that in jest because we are entering Q4. And so with that, all of a sudden, we have hundreds of thousands of publishers across the world who use Lightning Source. So everybody orders are in for getting their holiday orders in place, getting their books before the holiday season. So when Q4 starts, it really ramps up and we're at full capacity across all printers across the world. And then something else that is now becoming hindrance to the publishing industry across the board, I don't know if this is something you all discuss as a group, but it's paper supply and raw material supplies and the supply chain issues that are happening in the production of books. It was in the news this morning about this specifically, but paper is becoming extremely short and a very scarce commodity to find. And so what that does is you have you have even more publishers ramping up to get their books placed because they want to make sure that they have books for the holiday season before, God forbid, paper just doesn't become available. And so, keeping up with the industry news and all those different aspects tends to lean to that. But don't hold me to it because we just updated our TAT times, our turnaround times, and they're listed on the website when you go to the order placing process. But right now, I want to say we're at 10 to 15 business days on getting a paperback order. Depends on how big the order is, printed and shipped. So it's whatever, you would choose your printing. Once it's printed, whatever shipping method you choose. So right now, for speed, your shipping method is where you want to spend money during the Q4 season, because you're going to get a book. And there's next day, second day, standard, ground. If you really are in a hurry to get your book, you can order it from, order through IngramSpark, but upgrade your shipping. Something else that I always try to tell folks to remember too, that you don't really think about, is if your book is available at IngramSpark and it's made available for distribution, you can order your book from a bookstore. So you're going to may pay just a slightly bit more because you're buying the book from a retailer. But say I've only needed 5 copies or 6 copies for something that was very important that I needed to get in for reviews or something. And I know turnaround times are what they are, and it's put me up against the wall. And I know that there's a good chance I may not get those books in time to submit them for whatever it is I need to submit them for. I would actually go down to an independent bookstore and order my book for myself, because the independent bookstore orders are prioritized. And so they're going to come in, 24 to 72 business hours during Q4. Now I'm going to pay the retail price, and I can even let the retailer know, hey, I'm the author of this. This is why I'm doing it. I'm just trying to get the book as fast as possible. And, more than likely, they're going to be willing to work with you on the price. But the cool part of it is I'm going to get my books really fast, and I'm going to get paid publisher compensation on the back end because my book's sold to an independent bookstore. So whatever I'm having to buy it for, I'm also recouping some of that pub comp on the back end. So I always use that trick for folks who are in the need of just a smaller quantity of books in a hurry, especially during the Q4 season, that's a good little trick to have in your back pocket.
Awesome. And that actually answered another one of the questions we had from Janet about whether or not you're running into supply chain delays and issues, which sounds like it's kind of everywhere for everyone.
It is, even for the offset printers. I mean, right now, doing the offset print runs through traditional style printing is right for hardcovers right now. There's a fiber shortage in what is used to make a hardcover. So it's not even the cloth, it's a certain fiber that is used within the hardcover production that has become scarce all of a sudden. And so you see those turnaround times really backed up simply because of that fiber in the supply chain.
All right. So this one's from Kelly. Is there a cost each time that somebody would upload an update or a change to their title?
Yeah, so there is. So what happens is right now it's $49 to upload a print book, $25 these are one-time fees, $49 one-time fee to upload a print book, $25 one-time fee to upload an ebook. We run promo code specials. And then also if you're members of certain associations, we have promo codes that are available, and that's something that I can work on with this group as well. But there is that one-time cost of that. And then there's a revision fee. And so what happens is, and this is something that in best practices that I really should try to stress, and I haven't yet, is that when you're uploading your title to IngramSpark and you process your print files, you get an e-proof PDF email. When you receive that, a lot of folks just say, okay, it's done, I approve and I'm going to start printing. And then they get the copies of their books, and that's when they find the typo that they made on the cover and the title, or somewhere on page 70, there's a glaring typo they made in the interior files. And so they fix it, and then they upload their revision file. Well, there's a $25 revision fee when you do that, because the book is already in production, is already going out. And now we've got to pull it out and reprocess everything to get it back up and going within all the systems. So what I always tell folks to do, best practice is when you get that e-proof, go through it page by page, read out every word, read the copy, see if you can find any errors possible within that e-proof PDF before you approve the book for printing. Because if you haven't approved the book for printing, you can say, no, I don't approve this PDF. I'm going to submit another file. And that doesn't cost you anything. It's once you approve the book for printing and it has gone into production and we are creating and producing this title, that's when you see the revision fee. And then also you'll see us run different campaigns. Like coming up soon, you're going to see that, Groundwood is a great paper source to use that's available out there, that many traditional publishers have switched their entire, lines of titles over to, is using Groundwood paper. So we're going to bring that to everybody's attention and let them know that is an option through IngramSpark. And we're going to run some promos and different things that say, if you want to make these changes, here's the revision code to use, so it doesn't cost you anything. So that's why it's really important to follow us on social media, because you get to see those codes when they come out and see the specials that we run. But yes, just a rack rate, $25 revision fee after you have approved a book for printing.
Very good to know. Let's jump on to the next one here from Paul. As a designer, I help many different indie publishers with their books, which sometimes includes uploading files for POD. Does IngramSpark offer any sort of service provider login? Allows me to log in and upload on their behalf, or would you have to go through their account?
No, you would have to go through their account. So we don't have any API situations built, because even if you go to IngramSpark.com and you click on resources and the experts and go to that experts page, you're going to find large companies on there that offer the services we don't, like a 99 Designs or 1101. You're going to go in and see all the different categories of companies that work with us and do that. But they don't even have APIs built in to drop titles into accounts. So when you're, as a designer, working with an author, the easiest way for you to do it is to have that, and I don't want to say that, but the easiest way is if that author was willing to just log in for you or allow you the credentials to log in and drop it in. I don't like saying that because we don't, the account holder is the sole responsible person for that account. But it does happen where a lot of designers working with authors just go into that author's account on their behalf and upload the files for them. And then, the author is able to change their password at any time once they've completed that transaction. But I'm not going to legally say that that's what you can do, but you can do that.
Unofficially, of course. Looks like we're butting right up against 8:30, Jennifer. Should we call it? We got a couple more questions on the list. What do you think?
Yeah, go ahead. You can call a couple more, and then if there's that many more afterwards, you can always have them sent in to you and then sent to me, and we'll answer them for you as well.
What do you think, Jennifer?
Yeah, sounds good. I was just about to type the MIPA email address in case anyone wants to send over questions after the meeting. But if Josh is willing, let's do another one or two.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, we'll do this is kind of a combo question here, two different ones. And then we'll put the MIPA email in the chat, and then if you have other questions, send them, and we can kind of bulk them up and send them over to Josh and get answers that way. But here's here we go. We'll do this one. This is from Bob. When would it make sense economically to POD a 32-page color hardcover picture book on this?
When will it make economic sense?
I'm guessing Bob's question has to do with the price point and the price of printing color.
Yeah, so it's funny because the way color printing through IngramSpark is you have your three different options. You have your standard color, and then the standard 70, and then the premium color. And obviously the premium color is going to be our cat daddy. That's going to be the most ink laying down on the page. It's going to be one that pops the most. It's also going to be the most expensive because of how much ink is hitting that paper. And to be honest, at 32 pages, you're getting a little bit out of the range there. But if you go in and you actually look at the premium color pricing, from 28 pages or below on those large trim sizes are actually really good print points. It's once you start breaking print costs. It's once you start breaking past that 32, 35 page range, you're getting to a pretty thick book, especially if you're doing a photo album or a cookbook. What I recommend is first looking at that standard 70 option, and depending on the illustrations that you have, if it's not just full page, full cover, full color all over the page, extravagant illustrations that you're doing, a standard 70 may be better for you because it's going to be more cost efficient to print, and you're not needing all that extra ink that's hitting the paper. But I will say that the premium color pricing does get a little exorbitant, especially through print on demand. It does. It's so expensive to print the hardcover premium color. That's the most expensive book you can print with us. But when you go look at the lower page counts, and so maybe, I don't know what your trim size is. I'm guessing it's probably 8.5 by 11, but it may be in a situation where you have a smaller trim size. But if you make a larger trim size, you can get away with less page count and see that cost go down. It's really what drives the price up is that page count. So I will say for the premium color, especially a paperback premium color with 28 pages or less, it's actually pretty good pricing in there, in my opinion, for what it would actually cost to create that book. So what I would recommend first is looking at the standard 70, which costs less to print than the premium color, and seeing if that suits your taste before kicking it up to the premium color, which is going to cost more to print.
And then could you just reiterate the name of that paper specification you recently mentioned? Brown paper, is that what it was?
No, so groundwood. Yeah, so groundwood is a paper that's out there that it's a paper that many publishers have swapped over to, and specifically because of the tonnage. It's a lighter weight paper, so when you have a book, especially of significant page count, all of a sudden your book is weighing a lot less when you're printing it on groundwood versus printing it on white or cream paper. And so that definitely affects the shipping cost on the tonnage when you're ordering these books, but it also, it looks good. I mean, it's got a different feel to it. It's not as thick, obviously, as, well, I say that it's not as thick, but so it's 440 PPI and versus like a wire cream that's like 550 PPI. What that means is I need on white or cream 550 pages to make it a full inch thick, where with groundwood, I need 440 pages to make it an inch thick, but it's a lighter paper. So it's almost like it's wider, but it's a lighter paper in weight. So it works really well for titles that are low page counts. So what happens a lot is you have the low page count titles that have thin spines. And so the spine, because the page count's so thin, there's not much room on the spine to work. But if you use that groundwood, all of a sudden, instead of taking 550 pages to create a inch of paper, I'm only needing 440. So all of a sudden my, 50 to 150 page 6x9 title is going to look thicker. Even though it's going to be lighter, it's going to look thicker because of the paper. It makes it look a little more substantial and gives you more room on the spine to work with. So you'll see a lot of the traditional publishing houses, especially the major ones, in the past 3 or 4 years have been switching their titles all over to groundwood. There again, for the cost savings and for appearance when it's on the shelf. But that is an option that's available through IngramSpark as well.